Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. In today's video, I have a dupe for the Subculture palette for you. Now, I know the Subculture palette is not anything new, but I still really enjoy it, and especially now that it's being discontinued, I feel like some people might run out of it and they're looking for alternatives. And if you've seen my previous videos, you might have noticed that there are some genuinely really good dupes out there for a fraction of the price. I have amazing dupes for the Huda Beauty New Nude palette, for the Lime Crime Venus XL2 palette, and for the Born to Run palette from Urban Decay, and I am still on the hunt for the perfect one of the Subculture palette. So I came across a palette called Silauder when I was searching Amazon for dupes, and well, as soon as you look at it, it just looks like a dupe. And when you open it, the layout, the feel of the palette, everything looks exactly the same. The colors are called the same. It also comes the same brush that the original palette does. And whilst it's a little bit stiff, you can bend it back just like you would with the original palette. So this is the dupe. Some of the shades look a little bit off. I will insert the swatches for you to see how they compare to the original shades. It's definitely not as pigmented as the original one. In the eyeshadow that I created today, half of it is done with the original Subculture palette, the other half is done with the Silauder palette, and the original one is this side. I feel like it's just so much more perfect, and the colors are beautiful, pigmented, opaque. They are exactly what I wanted them to be. On the Silauder side, I did get tons and tons of fallout. You can't really build up the colors, and to be honest, that's all there is. They are nice shades, they are quite silky smooth, and they are quite easy to blend. But just like with most drugstore and dupe palettes, the colors tend to blend away, especially the darker ones. Most of the times, the drugstores and dupe palettes get the shimmery shades right. However, in this palette, I feel like the shimmery shades are actually quite bad. For example, the shade Electric is supposed to be a duochrome shade, and it is not. Also, the shade Cube, I don't know if you can see, but on my eye, I have that in my inner corner. It is supposed to be a light pinky duochrome shade. Instead, in the Silauder palette, it's just a straight on white shade. So I definitely don't think that this is the best dupe out on the market, and I definitely have other Subculture dupes that I would recommend much more than I would ever recommend this one. But I'm gonna do this review anyway, and I will upload this video anyway, because this is not just about finding the perfect dupe, but it's also about which ones to avoid. And I feel like this is definitely one to avoid, not because it's horrible, but because for the same money there are just much better dupes than this one. Just a couple of positive things I wanted to mention about this Silauder palette before we jump into this tutorial. So it is a cruelty-free eyeshadow palette that has 12 months shelf life, and it's made in the People's Republic of China. And for the first time ever, it contains exactly the same amount of product as the original. They both contain 0.7 grams of product per pan, and they both have 14 pans inside. Like I said, the shades are exactly the same. There's no switching shades around, there is no replacing shades. They are supposed to be the same shades, they do have the same names, but unfortunately the duochromes are not duochrome, and the nice shimmery shades don't perform that well. Just to prove you that, I'm gonna do a couple of swatches very quickly. The first one is going to be Adorn. This is how they look like. This one is the original one, this one is the one from the Silauder palette, and let me just really quickly swatch them for you. As you can see, the one from the Anastasia palette is really pigmented, and it's a quite nice antique gold shade, and the other one is just such a sorry excuse of a shimmery shade, honestly. The next one I want to swatch for you is Electric, which is, like I said, supposed to be a duochrome shade, and I absolutely love that shade. I know a lot of people don't really appreciate it, but for me it's such a special shade. And this is how they look like on my finger. This is the original, this is the Silauder one. Don't know if you can tell, but it's a completely different shade. And whilst the original, the first one is duochrome, the second one is not. So yeah, generally speaking, I'm quite disappointed with this palette because I feel like there are some really good eyeshadow palette dupes on the market. This one is not one of them. I'm gonna have, however, one more dupe of the Subculture palette coming up, and that is gonna be from You Can Be. And so far, all of the You Can Be dupes I tried were absolutely stunning. So before you decide to purchase any of the ones that I reviewed so far, I would really appreciate if you would wait a little bit, possibly subscribe to my channel to don't miss out on that upload. And yeah, just give me some time because I'm gonna review that one very soon, and I feel like based on my experience with You Can Be, it's quite possible that that is going to be the best dupe. Regardless, I'm gonna still show you how I created this eye makeup look. I don't want to convince you to agree with me, but I just want to be able to show you the reasons that I don't really think that this is a good palette, and then you can decide it yourself. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so as always, I'm gonna be using the more expensive palette on this side of the face, which is today gonna be the Subculture palette, and the more affordable palette on this side of the face, which is today gonna be the Silauder palette. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I applied some concealer all over the lids to cancel out anything. I didn't set that yet. First, I'm gonna take a big crease brush and I'm just gonna take the shade Dawn and set the concealer. The reason I wanna do this is because we are gonna be working with quite dark colors, and as much as I would like those dark colors to stick, I don't want to not be able to blend them. The shade Dawn is also called Dawn and it's in the same position in this palette. So I'm gonna take some of this. It definitely looks a lot more of a light orange shade. The other one is just a very similar shade to my skin tone, so I love to use that shade to set anything. But this shade Dawn is almost like a light orange color. Hopefully once I add it to my eye, it's not gonna look orange. Okay, so once you add it to your eye, it definitely has a yellow tone to it. So the more I apply, the more I can see that it's a little bit yellow. So next, using the same brush as before, we're gonna jump into the shade Mercury, which is a gray shade. So we take just a little bit of it because we wanna see first how it's building up and how it's blending. As you can see, the Anastasia version is really pigmented. So I just added that to my crease. I actually love this Subculture palette. I know some people don't. It definitely needs more time to work with it, but these colors are almost like pressed pigments. They are so pigmented. So that's a gray shade so far, and like I said, I only dipped the brush in the pan a little bit and we already have this much eyeshadow. Now I definitely want to build this up more because it is possible, believe me. But before we do that, I want to see how just a little bit of the Silauder shade compares to this. I want to see the pigmentation. The kickback from the Silauder palette is just as bad as the Subculture, so okay, I think that's quite alright. The color is a little bit different, but I actually prefer the Silauder shade because it has just a little bit more warmth to it. The Mercury shade in the Anastasia palette is really cool toned, almost blue. The one in the Silauder palette is definitely more blendable. It's much more silky. My biggest concern is that I don't think we're gonna be able to build this one up too much. So I'm gonna take a slightly smaller brush now. This is the Petit crease brush, and I'm gonna dip it into the Mercury shade again to try to build it up and focus it in the crease. Wow, look at that. And I'm gonna take the original brush now and blend it out a little. Take another small brush now. I don't have another Petit crease brush, but I have an eye blender brush that's quite similar, and I'm gonna dip this one into the shade Mercury from the Silauder palette again, and we see if we can build that shade up at all, because like I said, I just feel like it's too silky smooth to build it up. Yeah, this shade is not going anywhere. It's not letting me build up the color any more than this, so we're gonna have to move on. So the next thing I'm gonna do, surprise surprise, take a little bit more of a concealer. You guys probably noticed by now that I very much like half cut crease looks. And to set this, I'm gonna use the shade Dawn again. And now on the Silauder side. Yeah, so you can definitely see on the Silauder side now what I was talking about, that this Dawn is much more of a light orange shade. It's not similar to my skin tone at all, unlike this one. Anyway, we're gonna start working with the blue shade now. So the blue shade is called Axis, and I'm gonna take it on a small pencil brush and start darkening up the outer corner. And then take the original brush, we use the shade Mercury, and blend this blue a little bit, because I know even the Anastasia one is a bit patchy, so you will need to go back and add more color and blend it a couple of times before you can say that it's done. Let's see the Silauder side now. Again, the shade we're working with is gonna be the shade Axis. Even just looking at it in this palette, it doesn't look as dark at all. So I'm very curious how this is gonna look like, but I more and more start feeling like this video is gonna be a fail. So far, every single shade performed really badly, and considering how many much better dupes you have, this is just not good enough. So the shade itself looks quite similar. It's a little bit hard to build up though. I don't know if you can see how I'm struggling. These small brushes are normally quite good to pack on the color before you would blend it, but I find it a bit hard to pack the color. But even when I do, as soon as I take a blending brush and I start blending the shade, it starts coming off and it all just falls on my face. It doesn't stick to the skin. I think that is as good as it will get. Okay, so now to kind of finish off this look and brighten up the inner corner a little bit, I'm gonna get the shade Cube. Now I know the shade Cube is not white, unlike it looks like in the pan, But once I'm done with this, I'm gonna place a little bit of Roxy right in the middle, and that's gonna create a really nice transition from the shade cube to the shade axis. So just hold on. I took some of the shade cube, place it in the inner corner of this. I can feel it falling on my face. Why? So this is the shade so far. Like I said, this is not the finished look yet. I'm gonna also add Roxy, and because this one is not really a shimmery shade, I'm gonna have to add some highlighter in my inner corner. That's not gonna be from this palette, I'm sorry, but I just have to have something there. But now let's see the first shade from this Silauder palette. Like I said, it's also called Cube. This one doesn't seem to have any pink in it, which is gonna be interesting because the other one does, and it actually did turn my whole eyelid into a light pink shade. Ooh. Yes, well, this one definitely doesn't look anything like the cube from the Anastasia palette. It's not bad though. Actually, you know what? If we had something like this in the Subculture palette, I would be happier than I am with Cube, because I feel like the number of looks you can use Cube with is so limited. Such a useless shade, honestly. So yeah, I actually do prefer this color over this color. This one, Cube, especially now that it warmed up on my skin, it's a light pink shade. Why did you need it to start out as a white duochrome shade? Why? It's not duochrome because it's not shiny at all. It's almost just like a shade that looks white in the pan and looks pink on your eye. I have no idea what's the point of that. Moving on though, like I said before, I want Roxy to be in the middle of this. So I'm gonna take the Anastasia palette again, shade Roxy, just a little bit of it on my finger, and just place it in the center. So now I'm gonna take again the original brush that I used with the blue shade, and without picking up any more product, I will just blend the edges next to the Roxy shade. Do the same thing on the Silauder side. To emphasize that cut crease, I'm gonna take my razor sharp liner from Urban Decay in the shade Bump, and this is just a matte white eyeliner. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna place a line exactly where the cut crease is. Now we're gonna do the same thing on the Silauder side. Obviously the liner we use is exactly the same. Okay, and now I'm gonna go off camera and I'm gonna finish this look, and then we're gonna be back to discuss it. Alright guys, so this is the finished look. I definitely think that the dupe doesn't come anywhere close to the original. And in 2019, where you have all of these amazing brands in China, including UCAN, who can make better eyeshadow palettes than these high-end companies can, and even if you just forget about dupes for a second and you think about Juvia's Place, who can make these really, really pigmented, opaque eyeshadows, coming out with an eyeshadow palette like this is just not gonna cut it. People are not interested in any cheap-ass colors. In the drugstores, you can buy a lot of really, really good quality eyeshadow palettes for similar price. Now, I must say that this eyeshadow palette is not worse than, for example, Makeup Revolution is. However, it is worse than UCAN or Focallure. So I think there is a reason that we don't see any other eyeshadow palettes from Silauder on the market, because clearly this is just not really working. I think what really saved this look was this white shade and the shade Roxy being so similar to the original one. If I blended this blue one anymore, as you saw before, it would all come off. The gray one wasn't really building up. Now it looks kind of alright, but you can still see that this eye, the contrast, the pigmentation is just not as great as this one. Whilst it is much cheaper than the Anastasia palette, because of the performance of the palette, I wouldn't recommend it. I'm not going to recommend you any dupe palettes just because they are cheaper, because let's be honest, yes, they are going to be cheaper. That's the whole point of having a dupe. But this palette is just simply not good enough to save the money, because we don't just want to save money, but we want the same color payoff we would get from the high-end palette, and you don't get that here. So in my opinion, stick with the Anastasia palette. Don't let the cheaper price fool you. If you want to save your money and look for a dupe, I have made other dupe videos for the Subculture palette, and those eyeshadow palettes are generally much better than this one. So go have a look at those. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe, because I'm gonna have more videos coming up as well. That is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. I hope to see you next time here again. Until then, take care of yourself. I will see you very soon.